Jamal Harper holds one warm shift meal in his hand, with barely enough money in his pocket to survive the week. That money is meant for rent, utilities, and the inhaler his little brother has only a few puffs left in. If he keeps walking, his family eats tonight. If he gives this meal away, they do not. Then he sees her. An elderly woman sits on the locked library steps. Her back stays straight, as if pride is the only thing holding her up. No one asks if she is okay. A worn notebook and a broken radio rest beside her on the concrete. She just glances at the food in his hands and looks away, as if she would rather go hungry than ask. One meal, 3 hungry mouths at home. Jamal feels his stomach twist with a painful knot of conflict. Then he kneels and holds the container out to her. He has no idea that soon 50 United States Marines will surround his house because of this choice. Before we go any further, comment where in the world you are watching from, and make sure to subscribe because the next story is one you do not want to miss. The kitchen was dim as Jamal Harper moved quietly through their small rental home. The cabinets creaked softly as he opened them, taking inventory of what remained. Half a box of cereal, 2 eggs, a heel of bread, and some nearly expired milk. He would make it work, he always did. Behind him, his mother, Renee, shuffled in, still in her nurse's aide uniform after working the night shift. Dark circles shadowed her eyes. "Baby, you should be sleeping," she whispered. "I am good, Mama. Sit down. I will fix you something before bed." Jamal pulled out their last clean pan, carefully cracking an egg while stretching the cereal portion into 2 bowls. His brother appeared in his Pokemon pajamas, hair tousled from sleep. "Morning, Jay." He climbed onto a kitchen chair, watching his brother work his usual morning magic. Jamal ruffled his hair. "Hey, buddy, let me check that inhaler first." He retrieved the asthma medication from the windowsill, frowning at how light it felt. The refill would have to wait until payday. While his brother took his morning puff, Jamal spotted the corner of an envelope peeking out from under yesterday's mail. His heart sank as he recognized the final eviction notice. In one smooth motion, he slid it under an empty cereal box before his mother could see it. She had enough to worry about. "Here we go," Jamal announced, setting down their meager breakfast with as much ceremony as he could muster. He had given his brother the larger portion of cereal and his mother the whole egg, keeping just a piece of dry toast for himself. "You need more than that," Renee protested. But Jamal shook his head. "I have my shift meal later at the restaurant." "I am good, Mama. Eat." The walk to school was long, but Jamal preferred it to wasting bus fare they could not spare. Halfway there, he spotted something on the ground, a worn leather wallet. Inside, he found identification belonging to Mr. Callahan, one of the school janitors. Jamal jogged to catch up with the elderly man who was trudging toward the school entrance. "Found your wallet, sir." The janitor's weathered face creased with relief. "Lord, thank you, son. My whole week's pay is in there." "No problem, sir. Have a good one." Jamal continued on, ignoring the growl in his stomach. Near the school, he noticed Mrs. Fletcher, their elderly neighbor, struggling with her walker at the bus stop. Her hands shook as she tried to check the schedule. "Mrs. Fletcher, you heading to the clinic?" She nodded, squinting at the bus times. "Cannot make out these numbers anymore." Jamal reached into his pocket, feeling his last bus transfer, the one he had been saving for his ride to work. Without hesitation, he pressed it into her hand. "Here, this will get you there and back." "But do not you need it?" "I like walking," he assured her with a smile. "Stay safe, Mrs. Fletcher." The morning assembly was already underway when Jamal slipped into the auditorium. Principal Vaughn stood at the podium, his expensive suit a stark contrast to the worn school surroundings. "Exciting changes are coming to our community," Principal Vaughn announced, his polished voice echoing. "The revitalization initiative will bring new opportunities." Jamal listened with growing unease. Revitalization meant rising rents. Opportunities meant pricing out families like his. His hand brushed against the folded apprenticeship application in his pocket, his secret hope for getting them ahead. But it needed Principal Vaughn's recommendation, and Principal Vaughn had made it clear what he thought of students from certain backgrounds. The school day dragged by, each class punctuated by the hollow feeling in Jamal's stomach. Finally, the last bell rang, and he headed straight to his dishwashing job at Rosa's family restaurant. Steam and the clatter of dishes filled the hot kitchen as Jamal worked, his arms submerged in soapy water. The shift meal was what kept him going, not just for himself, but for who needed it most. Today's special was meatloaf with mashed potatoes and green beans. His mouth watered at the thought, but his mind was already working through the math. Mama needed energy for her night shift. His brother was a growing kid, and he had seen Miss Vera huddled on the library steps, looking thinner than ever. As his shift ended, Jamal stood at the back door of the restaurant, holding the single foam container of food. The weight of it felt like gold in his hands. His stomach cramped with hunger, but he thought of his mother's exhausted face, his brother's growing frame, and Miss Vera's dignity, even in desperation. One meal, 3 hungry people. Jamal gripped the container tighter, weighing his choice. The evening sun cast long shadows across the cracked sidewalk as Jamal hurried past the old library building. Its boarded windows and faded closed for renovation sign had become a permanent fixture in the neighborhood. His legs ached from standing all day at the dishwashing station, but he could not slow down. The last bus home would leave soon, and he needed to get this food to his family. That is when he saw her. An elderly woman sat on the library steps, her back straight despite the cold concrete beneath her. Her clothes were worn but clean, and her gray hair was neatly combed back from her face. A broken radio sat beside her, its antenna bent at an odd angle. But it was the way she stared at the restaurant's dumpsters across the street that made Jamal's steps falter. Like looking at them physically hurt her. He recognized that look. It was the same one his mother wore when she thought no one was watching. The silent calculation of need versus pride. The woman's eyes snapped to him as he hesitated. They were sharp and alert, missing nothing. Her gaze flickered to the foam container in his hands, then away again, her jaw tightening. Jamal approached the steps. Up close, he noticed more details. A well-worn tote bag kept carefully clean, a small notebook with neat handwriting visible on its open pages, and shoes that had been recently polished despite their age. "Evening, ma'am," he said softly, kneeling down to her level. "I work at Rosa's back there. Would you like to share some dinner?" The woman's eyes narrowed. "I do not take handouts, boy." "It is not a handout," Jamal said. "It is my shift meal. Too much for just me." He kept his voice casual, respectful. She studied him for a long moment, her gaze taking in his school ID badge, his dishwashing uniform, the careful way he handled the container. Her eyes lingered on his hands, clean but rough from hot water and industrial soap. "What is your name?" she asked finally. "Jamal Harper, ma'am." "Vera Grayson," she replied. "Miss Vera to most folks." She paused, then added with unexpected fierceness, "Do not you dare offer me money. Food is kindness. Cash is control. There is a difference." Jamal nodded, understanding completely. He opened the container and carefully tore the napkin in half, making each piece neat and presentable. With practiced movements, he divided the food evenly, arranging it so each portion looked full. Miss Vera watched this process with unwavering attention. "You have done this before," she observed. It was not a question. "Yes, ma'am." She accepted her half of the napkin and food with dignity. "You will miss your bus?" she noted, nodding toward the stop down the street. Jamal stood, brushing off his knees. "Yes, ma'am, that is all right. Somebody is waiting on this food at home." He hesitated. "They will understand." Miss Vera's expression softened almost imperceptibly. "Better get walking then, Mr. Harper." Jamal turned to go, but her voice stopped him. "You season this yourself." "No, ma'am. Rosa's kitchen." She took a small bite of meatloaf. "Needs pepper, and somebody ought to teach their cook about proper gravy consistency." A smile tugged at Jamal's lips. "Yes, ma'am, I will pass that along." The walk home felt longer than usual. Jamal rehearsed different versions of an apology in his head. "I am sorry, Khalil. Something came up." "No." Too vague. "There was someone who needed it more, but that might make Khalil feel less important. I will make it up to you tomorrow." But promises were dangerous when you were not sure you could keep them. Streetlights flickered on as he walked, casting pools of yellow light on the sidewalk. His stomach growled, reminding him that he had not eaten since that piece of dry toast at breakfast. But when he thought of Miss Vera sitting alone on those cold steps, he could not regret his choice. The stairs to their second-floor apartment creaked under his feet as he climbed them slowly, his empty hands feeling heavier than when they had held the food. Through the thin walls, he could hear the TV playing Khalil's favorite cartoon. His brother's homework would be spread across their wobbly kitchen table, waiting for help with math problems. Jamal stood at the door, key in hand, gathering his courage. Then he turned the lock and stepped inside to face his family. Jamal stood at the stove, stirring the pot of cheap noodles. The blue-orange flame flickered beneath, casting dancing shadows on the kitchen wall. Behind him, Khalil sat at their wobbly table, chin propped on his hands, watching the steam rise with hungry eyes. Their mother's soft snores drifted from the living room couch where she had collapsed, still wearing her waitress uniform. Dark circles painted shadows under her eyes, and her shoes were still on her feet. Jamal kept his movements quiet, not wanting to wake her before her next shift. "I'm sorry about dinner, Khalil," Jamal said softly, testing the noodles with a fork. "I know you were counting on that meatloaf." Khalil's shoulders slumped slightly, but he tried to smile. "It is okay, Jay. Were you hungry too?" The question twisted something in Jamal's chest. "Tomorrow will be better," he promised. Even as his mind raced through their dwindling groceries and empty wallet, he divided the noodles into 2 bowls, making sure Khalil's portion was larger. "Did you finish your math homework?" Jamal asked, setting the bowls down. "Most of it. Can you check number 7? I got stuck." They worked through the problem together while eating, Jamal explaining fractions between bites. When Khalil's eyes started drooping, Jamal sent him to brush his teeth and tucked him into bed. The next morning, Jamal woke early as usual. He stretched their last eggs and toast into breakfast for 3, secretly setting aside a small portion wrapped in paper towels. His mother noticed him packing it, but did not ask questions. They had all learned to trust each other's reasons for doing things. After school, his feet carried him back to the library steps. Miss Vera sat in the same spot as the day before, her posture still proud despite the chill in the air. Her tote bag rested beside her, and the broken radio remained a silent sentinel. "Brought you something, Miss Vera," Jamal said, offering the wrapped breakfast. She examined the simple meal with critical eyes. "Cold eggs and toast, boy. You need to learn about proper food storage." But she ate it anyway, and Jamal noticed how she made each bite last. This became their routine. Each day Jamal would appear with whatever food he could manage. Sometimes part of his shift meal, other times something cobbled together from home. He started walking longer routes to save bus fare, memorizing shortcuts between neighborhoods. She commented on his wrinkled uniform. "Your mama works nights at that diner on Parker Street, does not she? Hard schedule, those graveyard shifts." Jamal blinked in surprise. "How did you—" "I notice things," she cut him off. "Speaking of noticing, never sign a lease without reading the fine print about maintenance responsibilities. Landlords love to hide their duties in paragraph 6. She critiqued his sandwich-making technique while scribbling in her notebook. "Diagonal cuts taste better than straight ones. That is just facts." But it was what she did not say that caught Jamal's attention. He began to notice how her eyes tracked certain cars that passed by, particularly the shiny black ones with tinted windows, how she would write quickly in her notebook when men in expensive suits walked past, muttering numbers under her breath that sounded like license plates. One evening found them sharing the last of his shift meal, a slightly dry chicken sandwich that she declared needed more mayonnaise, but at least it was not yesterday's tuna surprise. A group of suited men exited the building across the street, their shoes clicking importantly on the sidewalk. Miss Vera's hand moved to her notebook with practiced speed, but this time it fell open facing Jamal. He caught a glimpse of neat columns, dates, times, addresses, license plate numbers paired with location codes, names connected by arrows to what looked like property listings. Before he could make sense of any of it, she snapped the notebook shut with surprising quickness. "Getting dark early these days," she said casually. But her eyes were sharp as she tucked the notebook away. "Best head home before your mama worries." Jamal stood slowly, brushing crumbs from his pants. "Same time next week, Miss Vera." She nodded once, already turning her attention to a sleek car crawling past the library. "Mind how you go, Mr. Harper, and remember what I said about those leases." The kitchen hummed with the clatter of dishes and the hiss of industrial dishwashers. Jamal's arms were elbow-deep in soapy water when Mr. Callahan, the restaurant manager, burst through the swinging doors. "Listen up, everyone." Mr. Callahan's voice cut through the noise. "The Anderson wedding party wrapped early. Double pay for anyone staying late to clean up." Jamal's hands stilled in the sink. Double pay. The words echoed in his head, mixing with the memory of Khalil's wheezing that morning. The inhaler was almost empty. His mother's next paycheck would not stretch far enough to cover a refill. "And get those catering trays to the dumpster," Mr. Callahan added, already turning away. "Health code says we cannot keep them." Jamal dried his hands slowly, watching as servers wheeled in cart after cart of barely touched food. Perfectly good sandwiches, fresh fruit, whole trays of grilled chicken and roasted vegetables that had never made it to the reception floor. His stomach churned, and not from hunger. He thought of Miss Vera on her library steps, of the old man who slept in the bus shelter on 4th Street, the teenage girl who hung around the park with her little sister. Both of them too thin, too quiet. The decision crystallized in his mind like frost on a window. He knew it was wrong, technically legally wrong, but there was a different kind of wrong pressing on his conscience. A heavier kind that came with watching good food die while good people went hungry. Jamal moved carefully, deliberately. He grabbed clean takeout containers from the stack by the prep station, containers meant for garbage anyway. His hands were steady as he transferred portions of food, making each container a proper meal. Not too much, not too little, just enough to keep someone's dignity intact while filling their stomach. "What are you doing back there, Harper?" one of the other dishwashers asked. "Taking out trash," Jamal answered, which was not exactly a lie. These containers were headed for the dumpster one way or another. He worked quickly, efficiently, the way his mother had taught him to pack lunches when money was tight. One container for Miss Vera. She would probably complain about the wedding chicken being too dry, but she would eat it. Another for the bus shelter man. 2 smaller ones for the Park sisters. The back door was so close, just 3 more steps. "What the hell is this?" Mr. Callahan's voice cracked like a whip. Jamal froze, containers balanced in his arms as the manager stormed across the kitchen. Other workers stopped to stare, their faces a mix of pity and relief that it was not them. "Stealing from me?" Mr. Callahan grabbed one of the containers, popping it open. "After I gave you a job, this is how you repay." "It was going to the trash," Jamal said quietly. "That is not your call to make." Mr. Callahan's face had gone red. "This is my restaurant, my food, my reputation on the line if someone gets sick. You think I want headlines about my business feeding dumpster dinners to homeless people?" The word homeless hit Jamal like a slap. He thought of Miss Vera's clean shoes, her careful handwriting, her dignified posture. She was not just homeless. She was a person with a name and a story and a right to eat. "I will call the police," Mr. Callahan threatened, reaching for his phone. "Get them down here right now." "Go ahead." Jamal's voice remained steady, even as his hands shook. "Tell them I could not watch food die while people are alive." The kitchen had gone silent. Even the dishwasher seemed to be holding its breath. Mr. Callahan's eyes narrowed. "You are fired. Get out of my kitchen, and do not expect a reference." Jamal set down all but one container, Miss Vera's portion. He untied his apron, slowly, folded it with the same care he used for Khalil's school clothes, and placed it on the prep counter. Then he walked out, spine straight, chin up, the way Miss Vera sat on her library steps. The evening air hit his face like a wake-up call. No job, no reference, no way to help with Khalil's inhaler, or the rent, or any of the other bills piling up at home. His hands were really shaking now, and his legs felt weak as he started walking toward the library. But the container in his hands was still warm, and he thought about what his mother always said. We do what is right because it is right, not because it is easy. The familiar path to the library stretched before him, 6 blocks. Each step felt heavier than the last, weighted down with consequences he would have to face eventually. But for now, he had a promise to keep. Miss Vera would be waiting, ready with her sharp comments and sharper eyes. And somehow that thought steadied him even as his world crumbled around the edges. Jamal's steps slowed as he approached the library. The familiar corner where Miss Vera always sat was empty. No flattened cardboard, no broken radio, no tote bag filled with her mysterious notebooks. Just bare concrete swept clean as if she had never existed. Miss Vera, his voice echoed off the building's stone facade. The evening shadows stretched long across the sidewalk, but they could not hide what was missing. A knot formed in his stomach as he clutched the still-warm container. He set it down carefully where she usually sat, then began searching the surrounding blocks. The alley behind the library, the small park across the street, the covered bus stop where she sometimes took shelter during rain. Nothing. The food was getting cold, but Jamal could not stop looking. He checked the convenience store where she occasionally bought coffee with carefully counted change. The cashier shook his head, had not seen her all day. The sandwich shop owner, who sometimes slipped her day-old bread, had not noticed her either. Darkness was settling in as Jamal made his way to St. Mark's Shelter, 6 blocks over. The intake volunteer flipped through her logbook, frowning. No one by that name or description today. Sorry, honey. The underpass near the railroad tracks was next. Jamal had seen outreach workers there before, talking to people who avoided the shelters. He picked his way carefully down the slope, shoes crunching on gravel. Miss Vera, he called into the shadows. A few people stirred in their makeshift camps, but none were her. One man wrapped in a tattered blanket looked up. The lady with the radio? He asked. Have not seen her since morning. Something was different, though. She packed up real careful, not in a hurry. Jamal's chest tightened. He thanked the man and climbed back to street level, his mind racing. Miss Vera never left her spot before dark, never packed up her few possessions unless rain threatened, and she definitely never disappeared without warning. There was one more person to ask. Jamal jogged back to the library, hoping to catch Mrs. Whitaker before she finished locking up. The librarian had worked there for years. She had to know something about the woman who had made the steps her home. He found her at the side entrance, keys jangling as she secured the heavy door. Mrs. Whitaker, please, I need to ask you something. She turned, startled by his voice. We are closed, Jamal. You need to go home. It is about Miss Vera, the woman who sits out front. Have you seen her? She is gone, and I am worried. The color drained from Mrs. Whitaker's face. The keys slipped from her fingers, clattering on the concrete. Oh, God, she whispered. Not her. What do you mean? Do you know where she is? Jamal stepped closer, but Mrs. Whitaker backed away, hands trembling as she retrieved her keys. Please, she said, voice barely audible. Just go home. Do not ask about her anymore. It is not safe. Not safe for who? Mrs. Whitaker, please. But she was already hurrying away, her heels clicking rapidly on the pavement. Jamal watched her disappear around the corner, leaving him alone with more questions than answers. The walk home felt endless. The container of wedding food sat heavy in his hands, a reminder of everything he had lost that day. His job, his reference, and now Miss Vera, who had become a strange sort of anchor in his daily routine, was gone too. Renee was asleep on the couch when he got in, still in her work uniform. Khalil had left her a note in wobbly handwriting. Finished homework. Took inhaler. Love you. Jamal covered his mother with a blanket and put the untouched food in the fridge. He could not bring himself to tell her about losing his job. Not yet. Sleep came in fits and starts. Jamal dozed in his clothes, listening to Khalil's wheezing breaths from the next room. The weight of everything, the eviction notice, the empty inhaler, the lost job, Miss Vera's disappearance, pressed down on his chest like concrete. Just before dawn, a different sound cut through his troubled sleep. Heavy footsteps, dozens of them, moving in perfect unison. The low rumble of engines. Jamal sat up, heart pounding. He reached the front window just as Renee stirred on the couch. "Baby," she called, voice thick with sleep. "What is that noise?" Through the thin curtains, Jamal saw them. Marines, at least 50 of them, formed up in precise lines along both sides of their street. Their dress uniforms caught the first gray light of dawn. Behind them, military vehicles idled quietly. "Mama," he said, voice steady despite his racing pulse. "Something is happening." Renee joined him at the window, grabbing his arm. "What did you do?" "Nothing," he whispered. "I swear." A tall figure stepped forward from the formation. Even without the commanding presence of his uniform, Gunnery Sergeant Dominic Reyes would have drawn every eye on the street. He moved with contained power, purpose in every step. Jamal opened the front door before the knock came. Renee's fingers dug into his shoulder as Reyes's voice rang out, clear and formal. "Jamal Harper." "Yes, sir." The gunnery sergeant's expression was unreadable as he extended a crisp white envelope. "We are here because of the woman you fed." Renee pulled Jamal closer as Reyes continued, his next words changing everything. "She left instructions. If anything happened, we were to come to you." The Marine stood at perfect attention as Jamal stepped onto the front stoop, his mother's presence warm behind him. The morning air felt electric, charged with possibility and uncertainty. Gunnery Sergeant Reyes's presence commanded respect without demanding it, his bearing both formal and reassuring. "May we speak inside, Mr. Harper?" Reyes asked, noting the growing crowd of neighbors peering from windows and porches. "I assure you, we are not here to cause trouble." Jamal glanced at his mother. Renee's hand trembled slightly as she nodded, stepping back to let them in. The small living room seemed to shrink as Reyes entered, his crisp uniform a stark contrast to their worn furniture and patched walls. "Please sit," Renee managed, her voice stronger than she looked. She positioned herself between Jamal and the door, maternal instinct warring with Southern hospitality. Reyes remained standing, holding the envelope with careful reverence. "Ms. Grayson, the woman you knew as Miss Vera, entrusted this to us with specific instructions. She was very clear about who should receive it." Jamal accepted the envelope, noting the weight of the paper, the precise creases. His name was written in familiar handwriting, the same neat script he had glimpsed in Miss Vera's notebook. With steady hands, he broke the seal and unfolded the letter. "Dear Jamal, you stubborn, beautiful child. If you are reading this, I'm gone. Do not waste time looking. I knew when it was time to disappear. What matters is why I chose you. You brought me food like it was normal. No phone cameras, no speeches about salvation, no demands for my life story or performances of gratitude. Just food given freely, even when it cost you. Listen carefully. The world will try to turn your kindness into a headline or a hustle. They will want to make it cute, make it trend, make it sell. Do not let them. Kindness is not currency. It is oxygen. It keeps people alive. You reminded me the world still has decent people. That is rarer than gold these days. Take care of what I left behind. It matters more than you know. VGPS. Your seasoning needs work, but your heart is perfect." Jamal folded the letter carefully, aware of the weight of Reyes's gaze. The room felt too small and too large at once. "Ms. Grayson was more than she appeared," Reyes explained, his voice softening. "She maintained a connection to a legacy project. one that several fallen Marines believed in deeply. It involves community support, educational opportunities, and what she called lifelines for neighborhoods like this one. Renee sank onto the arm of their shabby couch. Why my son? Because he proved himself without knowing he was being tested, Reyes replied. Ms. Grayson watched this community for years, waiting for someone with the right character to trust. She was particularly impressed by how your son handled losing his job yesterday. Jamal felt his mother stiffen. You lost your job? For feeding people, Reyes interjected smoothly. He chose dignity over compliance. That is exactly what Miss Grayson was looking for. The formation outside maintained their respectful stance as sunrise painted the street gold. Through the window, Jamal could see Mrs. Jenkins from next door watching in her bathrobe. Phone pressed to her ear. There is more to discuss, Reyes continued, producing a business card with the Veterans Center address. We would like you to meet us there this afternoon. Everything will be explained in detail. He paused, making eye contact with Renee. Ma'am, I give you my word as a Marine. This is an opportunity, not a trap. The Marines departed with the same precision they had arrived with, each offering a crisp salute as they passed the front door. The rumble of their vehicles faded into the morning traffic, leaving the street eerily normal, as if the whole thing had been a dream. Jamal sat at their small kitchen table, turning the business card over in his hands. The embossed letters caught the light. Veteran Service Center, Building 17. Renee stood behind him, her hands gentle on his shoulders. Baby, she whispered, her voice carrying years of hard-learned caution and desperate hope. Whatever this is, we do not mess it up. The morning sun streamed through their window, catching dust motes and making them dance like possibilities. Miss Vera's letter sat between them, its edges sharp and clean, holding secrets neither of them could yet imagine. The kitchen clock ticked steadily. Outside, the neighborhood buzzed with speculation. But inside their small home, mother and son sat in weighted silence, feeling the ground shift beneath their feet, waiting for the meeting to arrive. The Veteran Service Center stood solid and square against the afternoon sky, its red brick facade weathered but dignified. Jamal tugged at his worn hoodie, suddenly conscious of the coffee stain on one sleeve. Beside him, Renee clutched her purse like a shield, her work name tag still pinned to her collar from the night shift. Inside, the fluorescent lights hummed steadily over cream-colored walls, lined with service photos and resource posters. A desk sergeant directed them to Building 17, his eyes softening when Jamal mentioned Gunnery Sergeant Reyes's name. The conference room felt both official and tired, standard government-issue furniture that had seen better days. Jamal chose a plastic chair that did not wobble, while Renee perched next to him, back straight, ready to protect her son at the first sign of trouble. Reyes arrived precisely on time, accompanied by a woman in pressed civilian clothes, whose bearing marked her as military. Mr. Harper, Mrs. Harper. Reyes nodded respectfully. This is Sergeant First Class Carla Ruiz, retired. She oversees our community outreach programs. Ruiz's handshake was firm but warm. Thank you for coming, she said, settling into a chair across from them. Her movements were efficient, practiced, but her eyes held genuine kindness. I understand this morning was quite a surprise. That is putting it mildly, Renee murmured, her fingers still tight around her purse strap. Ruiz smiled, acknowledging the understatement. She opened a folder marked with Jamal's name. Let me be direct about why you are here. Ms. Grayson was connected to several programs designed to create opportunities for young people in this community. Real opportunities, not photo ops. She laid out documents one by one, apprenticeship listings, tutoring schedules, legal aid, contact information. We offer structured support, job placement, educational assistance, housing advocacy. There is also a scholarship fund that has been dormant for years. Vera helped establish it originally. Why have we not heard about this before? Renee asked, leaning forward to study a brochure. The programs exist quietly, Reyes explained. We are not here to create feel-good stories or recruitment propaganda. This is about honoring promises made by Marines who believed in building community lifelines. Ruiz nodded. Vera was our eyes and ears. She watched for young people who showed real character, not just good grades or clean records, but genuine integrity. People who would use these opportunities to lift others up. Jamal thought about the library steps, about sharing his last meal. She was testing people, observing, Ruiz corrected gently. She kept detailed notes, dates, names, patterns of behavior. When she saw someone worth investing in, she documented everything. She slid an application form across the table. We would like to offer you an interview slot for the apprenticeship program. It includes technical training and union certification options. Additionally, she glanced at Renee, we can help with immediate needs through our emergency assistance fund, like replacing an inhaler. Renee's breath caught. How did you? Vera noticed everything, Reyes said quietly. She mentioned your younger son's health concerns in her notes. Ruiz produced another form. This is preliminary paperwork just to start the process. Take your time reading it. We honor Vera's principles here. Jamal remembered Vera's stern voice. Never sign anything you did not read twice. He studied each page carefully while Ruiz continued explaining programs and possibilities. His mother's tension gradually eased as Ruiz answered questions about timelines and requirements. There is one more thing, Ruiz said, her tone shifting slightly. Vera's notebook contained information about the library property, dates, meetings, certain individuals who kept appearing. We believe it is relevant to current development plans. We received an eviction notice, Renee admitted, finally opening her purse to retrieve the crumpled paper. The whole block is being revitalized. Ruiz examined the notice, her expression hardening. This timing is not coincidental. I can connect you with a housing attorney this evening. The Marines take care of their own, and Vera made it clear you are now part of this family. Jamal sat straighter, feeling the weight of that inclusion. On the wall behind Ruiz, a faded photograph showed Marines building a school, somewhere dusty and far away. Their faces were tired but determined, focused on creating something lasting. An hour later, they emerged into the late afternoon sun. Jamal held a folder labeled Harper Next Steps, its contents promising more than just his future. His mother walked beside him, her shoulders lighter despite exhaustion. The bus stop bench offered a moment to breathe, to process. The folder felt solid in his hands. Not a dream, not a trick, but something real, something earned through small acts of kindness that had not seemed significant at the time. A transit authority worker passed by, sweeping cigarette butts from the sidewalk. Without hesitation, Jamal reached into his backpack and offered the man his last granola bar. Some habits, he realized, were already permanent. The kitchen seemed brighter somehow, despite the flickering overhead light that needed fixing. Khalil sat at the worn Formica table, his shoulders relaxed as he took steady breaths from the new inhaler. The old wheezing sound that had haunted his chest for weeks was finally quiet. "Better?" Jamal asked, watching his brother's face carefully. Khalil nodded, managing a small smile. "Way better. It does not hurt anymore." Renee moved between the stove and sink, stirring a pot of rice. The familiar smell of butter and salt filled their small kitchen. For once, she was not counting portions or stretching meals. The Veterans Center had also provided grocery assistance along with the medical aid. "Did you see how fast they got this to us?" she marveled, shaking her head. "Same day. I have never seen paperwork move that quick before." Jamal picked up his phone, scrolling to find the apprenticeship program number. His hands were not shaking anymore when he dialed. A friendly voice answered on the second ring. "Veterans Workforce Development, this is Tracy." "Hello, this is Jamal Harper. I am calling to confirm my interview time for tomorrow morning." "Of course, Mr. Harper. You are scheduled for 9 a.m. with Mr. Delgado in Building 17. Do you need directions or bus route information?" "No, ma'am. I remember how to get there." "Thank you." Renee watched him end the call, pride mixing with lingering worry on her face. 9 a.m. That is good timing. I will be back from my shift to watch Khalil. I pressed my good shirt, Jamal said, trying to sound confident. The blue one from Aunt Ruby. The rice started to simmer, filling the kitchen with steam. Khalil took another clean breath, tucking the inhaler safely in his pocket. For just a moment, everything felt possible, like the morning's marine formation had opened a door to a different future. The letter carrier's heavy knock shattered their peace. 2 hours later, Jamal signed for the certified envelope, his stomach dropping at the sight of their landlord's return address. Inside, legal language marched across the page in cold black type. Multiple code violations. Immediate action required. Accelerated timeline. 72-hour notice. Let me see that. Renee's hands trembled as she took the letter. This is impossible. We just had an inspection last month. Everything passed. Jamal read each line carefully, remembering Vera's warnings about paperwork. The violations seemed deliberately vague. Improper storage in common areas, unauthorized modifications, safety hazards. Nothing specific enough to challenge. It is not random, he said quietly. The timing is too perfect. His phone buzzed, an email notification from school. Principal Vaughn's message landed like another blow. Mr. Harper, due to concerning reports regarding your recent termination from employment, a disciplinary review has been scheduled for Monday morning. This may impact your eligibility for program recommendations and certain extracurricular opportunities. Please arrive at 7:30 a.m. to meet with the review board. Renee read over his shoulder, her expression hardening. They are trying to block you, but why? What threat could you possibly be to them? Jamal thought of Vera's notebook, her careful observation of suited men and license plates. He grabbed his jacket and the container of leftover rice. Where are you going? Renee called after him. To check something. I will be right back. The night air had turned cold, but Jamal barely noticed as he walked the familiar route to the library. The streetlights cast long shadows across the empty steps where Vera used to sit. He placed the container carefully in her usual spot, hoping against logic that she might appear. The scrape of tires made him look up. A black sedan rolled past, expensive and anonymous behind tinted windows. It slowed to a crawl, headlights sweeping across the library facade and pinning Jamal in their glare. He forced himself to stand still, heart pounding but refusing to show fear. The car lingered, engine purring. Jamal felt the weight of hidden eyes studying him, measuring his reaction. Just like Vera used to watch others from these same steps, noting their patterns and choices in her mysterious notebook. After what felt like hours, the sedan eased forward and disappeared around the corner without a sound. The food container sat untouched on the cold concrete, steam slowly fading in the night air. Jamal stood alone in the darkness, his breath visible in small clouds. The library's boarded windows offered no answers, no hint of where Vera had gone or what she had seen that made her such a threat. Where are you, Vera Grayson? He whispered to the empty street. Only silence answered, broken by distant traffic and the hum of streetlights. The night pressed close around him, full of shadows and unspoken warnings. Somewhere in this darkness, powerful people were moving against him, and his only ally was a vanished woman who had left him nothing but cryptic advice and a Marine honor guard. The morning sun cast long shadows across the school's brick facade as Jamal straightened his tie one final time. His pressed blue shirt felt stiff and formal, a shield of respectability borrowed from better days. He had arrived early, determined to handle whatever Principal Vaughn threw at him without being late for the apprenticeship interview. The school resource officer, Officer Matthews, stood with arms crossed near the office door. His face remained neutral, but his eyes followed Jamal's every move. The empty hallway amplified each footstep as Jamal approached. ID? Matthews asked, though they both knew who Jamal was. Jamal pulled out his student card, careful to move slowly and deliberately. The plastic felt slick against his nervous fingers. Go on in, Principal Vaughn is expecting you." The office smelled of coffee and copy paper. Principal Vaughn sat behind his imposing desk, a neat stack of documents arranged before him. His silver-framed glasses caught the fluorescent light as he looked up, lips pressed into what might have been meant as a smile. "Mr. Harper, thank you for coming early. Please have a seat." Jamal settled into one of the hard visitor chairs, keeping his back straight. His tie suddenly felt too tight, but he resisted the urge to adjust it. "I understand you have an important interview this morning," Principal Vaughn began, his tone carefully measured, "which makes this situation especially unfortunate." He slid a document across the desk. The letterhead bore an official seal. Jamal did not recognize it. His eyes caught phrases like exploitation of vulnerable persons and manipulation for personal gain. "A very serious complaint has been filed," Principal Vaughn continued, "regarding your interactions with an elderly homeless woman, one Vera Grayson." Jamal's chest tightened. "I brought her food, that is all." "Did you document these interactions? Post them online, perhaps?" "No, sir, never." Jamal met Principal Vaughn's gaze steadily. "I would not do that to someone." Principal Vaughn's fingers drummed against the desk. "And yet we have Marines showing up at your house. Quite a spectacle. Quite convenient timing, with scholarship season approaching." The implication hung in the air like poison. Jamal felt heat rise in his neck, but kept his voice level. "I did not know anything about that. I just—" He paused, choosing his words carefully. "I saw someone hungry and shared what I had." "Noble intentions." Principal Vaughn's tone suggested otherwise. "Unfortunately, given the severity of these allegations, we will need to implement an immediate suspension pending investigation. But my interview will need to be postponed." Principal Vaughn began filling out a form. "We cannot have students representing our school while under ethics investigation. I am sure you understand." Jamal watched Principal Vaughn's pen move across the paper, each stroke another bar in the cage being built around him. The clock on the wall ticked loudly. His interview was scheduled soon. "The complaint suggests you may have pressured Ms. Grayson," Principal Vaughn continued, "exploited her vulnerable position for personal advancement. Very concerning behavior." "That is not true." Jamal's hands gripped the chair arms. "I never asked her for anything, not once." "And yet, here you are, suddenly connected to Marine programs and scholarship opportunities." Principal Vaughn pushed his glasses up. "Quite a coincidence." The unfairness of it burned in Jamal's throat. Every meal he had shared, every long walk home after missing the bus, every quiet moment on those library steps reduced to cold suspicion on official letterhead. "With your record," Principal Vaughn added, "the best course would be accepting responsibility. Sign the statement of apology, and we can work toward a resolution that does not permanently impact your future." Jamal stood up, nearly knocking over his chair. "Excuse me, sir. I need to go." "Mr. Harper?" But Jamal was already moving past Officer Matthews's startled face, through the heavy doors and into the morning air. His dress shoes slapped against pavement as he ran to the bus stop, praying he had not missed the downtown route. 40 minutes later, he burst into the Veterans Center lobby, tie askew and shirt damp with sweat. The receptionist recognized him and immediately called Sergeant Ruiz. Ruiz took one look at his face and ushered him into her office. She read the complaint quickly, her expression darkening. "I know this signature," she said, tapping the bottom of the page. "Harlan Voss. He has been trying to buy that library property for years. Claims he will build luxury apartments." "Principal Vaughn wants me to sign an apology," Jamal explained. "Says it is the only way to avoid suspension." Ruiz's eyes narrowed. "Do not sign anything. This is a trap. If you admit to exploiting her, they can use it to invalidate anything she left you. Her documents, her testimony about the property deals, all of it becomes worthless." Jamal looked at his watch. His interview would start soon across town. "I should call them," he said quietly. "Explain why I cannot make it." Ruiz reached for her phone. I can help reschedule, but Jamal, this fight might cost you the position. Are you sure? Jamal thought of Vera's proud posture on those library steps, how she would refuse to beg or perform gratitude for kindness. He straightened his tie one final time. I will not lie about Vera Grayson, he said firmly, even if it costs me everything. The legal aid office was smaller than Jamal expected, with manila folders stacked high on every surface, and a window unit fighting the afternoon heat. Ryan Beckett, the housing attorney, sat behind a desk that had seen better days, his tie loosened and sleeves rolled up as he examined their paperwork. This eviction notice timing is no coincidence, Beckett said, spreading out the documents. They are moving unusually fast, citing violations that were not issues during previous inspections. Renee shifted in her chair, her work uniform wrinkled from an overnight shift. Can they really throw us out that quick? Not legally, no, but they are counting on you not knowing that. Beckett pulled out a highlighter. See these dates? They are trying to bypass standard notice periods. The speakerphone crackled with Gunnery Sergeant Reyes's voice. Similar pattern to other properties near the library. Push people out fast, minimal paper trail. Renee's hands twisted in her lap. What if we just take whatever deal they offer? At least we would have somewhere to live. Mama, no. Jamal leaned forward. If we sign their papers, we help them bury the truth about Vera. The truth will not keep us warm, baby. Renee's voice cracked. Sometimes you have to bend to survive. Beckett held up a hand. Before anyone signs anything, we need to find Miss Vera. Her testimony could stop both the eviction and the complaint against Jamal. Our networks are checking VA facilities, Reyes said through the phone. But she is smart. Probably used an alias. Makes it harder to track. Jamal closed his eyes, remembering Mrs. Whitaker's face at the library. The fear, but also something else. Guilt. Maybe. I need to try something, he said. The librarian knows more than she is saying. 20 minutes later, Jamal stood at the library's side entrance, knocking softly. Mrs. Whitaker's face appeared in the narrow window, pale and drawn. She cracked the door just enough to whisper, "Please go away. I cannot help you. You saw what happened to her, did not you?" Jamal kept his voice gentle. The night she disappeared. Mrs. Whitaker glanced over her shoulder, though the library was empty. I should not. She trusted me with food every day. Now I need to make sure she is safe. Something in Mrs. Whitaker's expression crumbled. She slipped through the door, hugging herself in the afternoon heat. It was late. After closing, she began. I was leaving through the back when I saw the ambulance. No sirens, just lights. Her voice dropped lower. She was conscious, arguing with them about her bag, but they took her anyway. Did you hear where? Mrs. Whitaker reached into her cardigan pocket with trembling fingers. I found this by the curb after they left. I should have said something sooner, but... She pressed a torn paper into his hand. I was scared. People who ask too many questions about Vera tend to have problems. Jamal examined the scrap, a medical intake sticker partially smeared but still legible, an unfamiliar last name, and what looked like a facility code. Thank you, he said quietly. You are doing the right thing. Mrs. Whitaker's eyes filled with tears. She used to work here, years ago, before they started pushing people out. She knew every book, every child's name. She squeezed Jamal's arm. Find her, please. The drive to the facility was tense. Renee sat in the back seat of Reyes's car, still in her work uniform, while Jamal held the torn sticker like it might dissolve if he gripped it too hard. Streetlights began flickering on as evening approached. The facility is about 20 minutes ahead, Reyes said, checking his GPS. It is a hospice center, but they have a VA wing. If she is there, we will find her. What if we are too late? Renee asked softly. Jamal touched the sticker again, tracing the smeared letters. He thought of Vera's fierce dignity on those library steps, how she had turned simple meals into lessons about integrity, how she had watched and measured and chosen him to carry something important. She is alive, he said. More prayer than certainty. She has to be. The facility's lights appeared ahead, warm windows dotting a long brick building. Jamal clutched the torn sticker, his heart pounding against his ribs. He could almost hear Vera's voice, sharp, proud, hiding wisdom behind criticism. All those meals, all those conversations on the steps, they had to lead somewhere. They had to mean something. "Please still be alive," he whispered as they pulled into the parking lot. The sticker trembled in his fingers, a fragile map to whatever truth Vera had been protecting all along. The fluorescent lights of the hospice center hummed overhead as Jamal approached the reception desk, his mother and Gunnery Sergeant Reyes close behind. The evening shift nurse, her name tag reading Brooke Ellis, looked up from her computer with practiced politeness. "May I help you?" she asked, eyes moving cautiously between Jamal's worn hoodie and Reyes's crisp uniform. "We are looking for a patient who may be registered under an alias," Reyes said, stepping forward. "It is a sensitive matter involving veteran affairs." Nurse Ellis's expression tightened. "I am sorry, but patient privacy protocols." "Ma'am," Reyes interrupted gently, pulling out a folder. "We have documentation. Emergency contact protocols authorized by the patient herself." He slid several official-looking papers across the desk. Jamal held his breath as the nurse examined each page, her forehead creasing. The antiseptic smell of the facility made his stomach turn. Or maybe it was the fear of what they might find. Renee's hand found his shoulder, steady despite her exhaustion. "These appear to be in order," Nurse Ellis finally said, though uncertainty lingered in her voice. "Room 214. But please understand if the patient is sleeping or does not wish to see visitors." "We understand," Reyes assured her. "We will follow all protocols." They followed the nurse down sterile hallways, their footsteps echoing against linoleum floors. Each room they passed held stories of endings, of lives winding down beneath thin blankets and beeping monitors. Jamal's heart hammered against his ribs. Room 214's door stood half open. Nurse Ellis knocked softly before entering. "Miss Thompson, you have visitors." Jamal stepped into the room and his breath caught. Vera lay in the hospital bed, smaller than he remembered, tubes running from her arms to clicking machines. But her eyes, those sharp, measuring eyes, opened and found him immediately. "Well," she said, voice rough but strong. "Took you long enough." Relief flooded through Jamal as he moved to her bedside. Before he could speak, her hand shot out and gripped his wrist with surprising strength. "You still feeding people?" she demanded. Tears pricked at Jamal's eyes. "Yes, ma'am. Every chance I get." "Good boy." Her fingers tightened. "They tried to stop you yet?" "The restaurant fired me," Jamal admitted. "And now there is some complaint." "Of course there is." Vera's laugh turned into a cough. "They are scared, baby. Scared because I chose right." She shifted in the bed, eyes moving to Reyes. "You brought the papers?" "Yes, ma'am." Reyes produced another folder. "Everything is secure." Vera nodded, then turned back to Jamal. "Listen close because I'm only saying this once. Those men in suits I used to watch, developer types, thinking they could steal the library, quiet-like, push out anyone who needed it most. But I kept records, dates, names, every dirty deal and broken law. That is why you stayed on those steps." Jamal realized you were watching them, documenting them, waiting for someone worthy to pass it to. Her grip softened slightly. "Someone who would give without trying to own my story. Someone who would remember what that library meant to the community." Renee stepped closer. "But why target Jamal with a complaint?" "Simple," Vera said. "If they can paint him as a manipulator, someone who exploited a confused old woman for attention, then anything he reveals from my documents becomes suspicious. They are trying to discredit him before he can even speak." She turned those fierce eyes back to Jamal. "That is why I had to test you first. See if you would post about helping me. Try to make yourself look good. But you just kept bringing food quiet-like, even when it cost you." Jamal swallowed hard. I never knew that was the point, ma'am. Vera's voice softened. Real kindness does not need to know why. She shifted again, grimacing. One more thing I need before this body gives out. Anything, Jamal said immediately. Take me to those library steps, one last time. Her eyes blazed with determination. Let them see me tell the truth in the open air with proper witnesses. Reyes stepped forward. Ms. Grayson, in your condition— My condition is dying, Sergeant. We both know it. She fixed him with that measuring stare. But I'm not dead yet, and I mean to make this count. Silence filled the room. Jamal looked at the machines, the tubes, the frailty in Vera's frame, and the unshakable will in her eyes. Reyes straightened, coming to attention. We will escort you, ma'am, with full honors. Good man. Vera's fingers squeezed Jamal's wrist once more. You ready for this, baby? Because once we start, there is no hiding anymore. The truth needs daylight and backbone. Jamal looked at his mother's worried face, at Reyes's solemn nod, at the fierce determination in Vera's eyes. He thought of all the meals shared on those steps, all the quiet conversations that had been building to this moment. Morning light filtered through the threadbare curtains of the Harper living room, casting long shadows across the worn carpet. Jamal sat on the edge of the sofa, his mother perched nervously beside him. Attorney Ryan Beckett stood near the window, his briefcase open on the coffee table. The knock at the door was precise, measured. 3 sharp taps that made Renee flinch. Harlan Voss entered with the smooth confidence of someone used to getting his way. His suit was perfectly pressed, his smile practiced and pleasant. He carried a leather portfolio that probably cost more than 3 months of their rent. Thank you for agreeing to meet, Voss said, settling into the armchair like he owned it. I believe we can resolve this situation to everyone's benefit. Jamal watched him carefully, remembering Vera's words about people who smiled too hard when offering papers to sign. Voss opened his portfolio with a flourish. We have prepared a very generous settlement package. He laid out several documents on the coffee table. First, immediate coverage of your outstanding rent and utilities. Second, a substantial donation to your school's scholarship fund. Third, your current landlord has agreed to withdraw the eviction notice entirely. Renee's breath caught. Jamal felt her trembling beside him. All we need, Voss continued, is your signature on a simple statement clarifying recent events. He slid a paper forward, just acknowledging that Ms. Grayson was understandably confused about certain matters, and that you may have misinterpreted her needs during your interactions. Beckett stepped closer, eyes narrowing. And the gag order? A standard confidentiality agreement, Voss said smoothly, along with transfer of custody for any related materials, personal effects, documents, that sort of thing. For proper archiving, of course. Jamal picked up the document, forcing himself to read every word twice. The language was dense, but the trap was exactly where Vera had warned it would be. They wanted her notebook, her evidence, her truth, all buried under legal words that would make him help them hide it. Baby, Renee whispered, her voice cracking. Think about Khalil. Think about having a real home again. Jamal looked at his mother's exhausted face, seeing all the years of struggle etched there. The money would solve so many problems. One signature, and they could breathe again. But Vera's voice echoed in his mind. Food is kindness. Cash is control. No, Jamal said quietly, setting the paper down. Voss's smile flickered. I am sorry. I said no. Jamal's voice grew stronger. I will not sign that. Perhaps you do not understand the opportunity. I understand exactly what you are offering, Jamal interrupted. You want me to help you bury the truth. Make it look like Vera was just some confused old woman, so nobody believes what she documented about your deals. Beckett stepped forward. In fact, we will be filing a protective motion today regarding Ms. Grayson's documents and requesting an emergency hearing about witness intimidation. The pleasant mask slipped from Voss's face. You're making a serious mistake, young man. This community needs progress. development. We cannot let one stubborn boy and a homeless woman's delusions stand in the way. His voice hardened. You will be made an example of. Is that what you want? What I want, Jamal said, standing up, is to honor the truth. Mr. Beckett, can you drive me to the Veterans Center? Of course. You are throwing away your future, Voss warned, gathering his papers. No, Jamal replied. I am choosing it. He turned to Beckett. I want to request a formal Marine escort to the library. Public. Official. In broad daylight. Let us bring everything into the open. Voss's jaw tightened. Without another word, he strode to the door, his expensive shoes clicking against the floor. When he was gone, Renee buried her face in her hands. Jamal, what have you done? What Vera taught me to do, Mama. Read twice, see the trap. Choose dignity. An hour later, Jamal sat in Beckett's office signing different papers. Documents placing Vera's evidence under formal protective custody. His hand was steady as he wrote his name. This will not be easy, Beckett warned. They will fight hard to discredit both you and Vera. I know, Jamal said, but some things matter more than easy. He thought of Vera's fierce eyes in that hospital room, of all the meals shared on those library steps. Sometimes you have to stand in the open and let the truth speak for itself. Late afternoon sunlight slanted across the hospice parking lot as automatic doors whispered open. Nurse Brooke Ellis wheeled Vera Grayson out carefully, adjusting the thin blanket across her lap. Though frail, Vera sat straight-backed in the wheelchair, her dignity intact. Gunnery Sergeant Dominic Reyes stood at parade rest beside the entrance, his presence both protective and respectful. 6 Marines in dress uniforms formed a small honor detail behind him, their bearing crisp and formal. Jamal walked next to Vera, his hands gentle on the worn canvas tote bag she had entrusted to him. The bag felt lighter than air, yet he knew its contents carried the weight of years of careful observation and truth. Renee followed a few steps behind, one hand on Khalil's shoulder. The boy's fingers twisted in the sleeve of Jamal's jacket, his eyes wide as he watched the Marines. You nervous, baby? Vera asked, glancing up at Jamal. No, ma'am, he answered softly. Just ready. She nodded, satisfied. Good boy, truth walks better with steady legs. They moved as a group through the streets of town, the Marines maintaining perfect formation around them. The unusual procession drew attention. Neighbors emerged from porches and shops, first curious, then subdued as they recognized the military presence. Some removed their hats, others simply watched in respectful silence. At each intersection, Reyes coordinated with his detail to ensure safe passage. The Marines moved with practiced precision, their boots striking the pavement in perfect rhythm. The sound echoed off buildings like a heartbeat. Khalil whispered, Jay, why are they all watching? Because sometimes, Jamal answered quietly, doing the right thing needs witnesses. As they approached the library, more people gathered. Mrs. Whitaker stood nervously near the steps, wringing her hands. Sergeant First Class Carla Ruiz arrived with Ryan Beckett, accompanied by a small group of veterans in civilian clothes. Community members who had seen the Marines pass through town began to collect at a respectful distance. There, Vera said firmly, pointing to a spot facing the library's main entrance. Position me there. Nurse Ellis carefully maneuvered the wheelchair into place. The afternoon sun caught the library's weathered facade, highlighting years of neglect, but also its underlying dignity. Like Vera herself, it remained proud despite hardship. The Marines adjusted their formation to create a protective semicircle. Reyes stood at parade rest slightly behind Vera's right shoulder, a silent guardian. Vera's voice, though aged, carried clearly across the gathered crowd. I speak now as witness and guardian. For years, I have documented the systematic pressure placed on property owners in this neighborhood. Threats disguised as opportunities, buyouts masked as charity. She gestured to her tote bag in Jamal's hands. Every meeting, every false promise, every coerced signature, it is all recorded here, along with proof of how the library's closure was engineered to devalue the area. Movement at the edge of the crowd drew attention. Harlan Voss appeared, his usual polish cracking as he realized what was happening. He started forward, face flushed with anger. "This is outrageous," he began. "This woman is clearly—" Reyes took one step forward, his presence alone forming an invisible wall. He did not speak or touch Voss. He simply stood, steady and immovable. The developer's words died in his throat. Vera continued as if there had been no interruption. "I chose my position carefully, watched from these steps as they tried to empty our community, waited for someone who understood that kindness is not weakness, it is strength." Her eyes found Jamal. "This young man fed me without asking for praise or payment. When they fired him for sharing food, he did not blame me. When they threatened him, he did not break. That is why I named him in my instructions. Character is not what you claim in daylight. It is what you do in shadows when no one is watching." She nodded to Beckett and Ruiz. "The notebook and supporting documents are to be released to them publicly and officially. Let every page see sunlight." The crowd had grown larger, phones recording, witnesses gathering. Mrs. Whitaker stepped forward, shoulders straightening as she added her own quiet voice. "I will testify about what I saw. No more hiding." The setting sun painted the library steps in deep gold as Vera reached for Jamal's hand. Her fingers were thin but warm as she covered his palm with hers. "Now they cannot bury it," she said firmly as Beckett approached with an evidence bag, its numbered tag catching the light. The porch light cast weak shadows across their small front yard as Jamal helped Renee up the steps. Khalil clung to his brother's free hand, unusually quiet after the day's events. Inside, the apartment felt different somehow, like the walls held their breath, waiting. "I will make some tea," Jamal offered, helping his mother sink into their worn armchair. Her uniform was wrinkled from sitting through the afternoon's confrontation. Before he could reach the kitchen, red and blue lights washed through the front windows. A patrol car crept past their house, moving slower than a walking pace. The officer inside made a point of writing something down, his dome light illuminating his stern face. "They are trying to scare us," Khalil whispered, pressing closer to Jamal's side. "Just watching," Jamal corrected gently, though his jaw tightened. "Let them watch. We did not do anything wrong." His phone buzzed with an email notification. Principal Vaughn's message was carefully worded, but clear in its threat. "Due to recent concerning behavior and pending investigation of community complaints, you are temporarily removed from regular attendance." Jamal set the phone down before finishing the message. He had expected this, Vaughn trying to control the story before it controlled him. The kettle whistled, its familiar sound somehow sharp in the tense quiet. As he poured 3 cups of chamomile tea, heavy footsteps approached their front door. Through the window, he watched the landlord tape another notice next to yesterday's warning. The red final notice header was visible even in the dim light. The sound of paper tearing made him turn. Renee stood with the eviction notice crumpled in her trembling hands, tears streaming down her face. "Why?" she choked out. "Why could not you just sign their paper? Take their money?" Her voice broke. "We could have been safe, Jay. Khalil could have been safe." The words hit him like physical blows, but there was no anger in them. Only a mother's raw fear for her children. "Mama," Jamal said softly, crossing to her. She let him pull her into his arms, her tears soaking his shirt. "I am scared too," he admitted, his voice rough with emotion. "But if I sold Vera's truth, if I helped them bury what she fought to protect, that safety would poison us from inside. Some things cost more than money to keep." "But where will we go?" she whispered against his shoulder. Khalil wrapped his arms around both of them, pressing his face against their sides. The 3 Harpers stood together, swaying slightly, when Jamal's phone rang. Sergeant First Class Carla Ruiz's voice crackled with urgency. "Jamal, the evidence is solid. State investigators are reviewing the library property deals right now. The developer's legal team just requested an emergency meeting. They are scrambling. Before Jamal could respond, she continued, and Ryan Beckett got your eviction stayed. Emergency injunction. The landlord cannot touch you while this plays out. Relief made Jamal's knees weak. Thank you, he managed. One more thing, Ruiz added. The apprenticeship coordinator called. They want you in tomorrow morning at 9. Said something about demonstrated integrity, under pressure being exactly what they are looking for. After the call ended, Jamal relayed everything to Renee. She sank back into her chair, hands pressed to her mouth. Baby, she said finally, voice full of emotion. I am so sorry. I forgot what courage looks like. She reached for his hand. Your daddy would be so proud. We are going to be okay, Mama, Jamal promised. The right way. Later, when Khalil was finally asleep and Renee had taken her evening pills, Jamal stood in the quiet kitchen. He carefully packed a plate with leftover rice and beans, adding a clean paper napkin like he always had for Vera. The windowsill overlooked the street where he had first learned to watch for need in others' eyes. He placed the plate there like an offering to memory, to principle, to the strength it takes to feed someone else when you are hungry too. His interview folder sat on the kitchen table, pages neat and ready. Jamal pulled out a chair, smoothed his palm over the cover, and began reviewing every document with the careful attention Vera had taught him. Tomorrow would come with its own challenges, but he would meet them honestly, standing upright in his truth. The apprenticeship center lobby smelled of coffee and fresh paint. Jamal smoothed his borrowed tie, a veteran's donation that Sergeant First Class Ruiz had helped him knot properly. She sat beside him now, reviewing his paperwork one final time before the interview. Remember, Ruiz said quietly, just tell the truth. Your actions speak for themselves. Ms. Brooke Whitaker emerged from her office exactly on time. She had steel gray hair and eyes that missed nothing, reminding Jamal of Vera's sharp gaze. Her handshake was firm, but not aggressive. Come in, Mr. Harper, she said, gesturing to the chair across from her desk. The office was orderly but lived in, with technical manuals lining the shelves and detailed shipyard drawings pinned to a corkboard. Your application is strong, Whitaker began, but I would like to discuss the incident at your previous job. She held up the restaurant termination notice. Tell me what happened. Jamal took a deep breath. They were throwing away untouched catering trays. I packed portions for people who needed food, including Ms. Grayson at the library steps. I knew it might cost me my job, but I could not watch good food go to waste while folks went hungry. And you were offered a settlement recently. Whitaker's pen hovered over her notepad. Yes, ma'am, money for rent, school support, and the eviction dropped. Jamal met her eyes. But I would have had to lie about Miss Grayson and give up documents that proved wrongdoing. I could not do that even though it put my family at risk. Some things matter more than short-term safety, Jamal said. My mama taught me that even if she was scared when I had to prove it. Ruiz smiled slightly beside him. Whitaker set down her pen and leaned back, studying him. Mr. Harper, do you know what we value most in our apprenticeship program? Skill and dedication, ma'am. Character, Whitaker corrected. We can teach technical skills. We cannot teach integrity. She pulled out a fresh form. You will start Monday at 7 a.m. The pay is better than your restaurant job, and we provide all safety equipment. Jamal blinked, his heart pounding. You are hiring me? I'm investing in you, Whitaker said. Someone who chooses right over easy, who thinks about others' needs. That is who I want learning our trade. She started writing. Sergeant Ruiz will help with the paperwork. Welcome aboard. The rest of the morning passed in a blur of forms and safety regulations. By afternoon, Jamal had a start date, a uniform allowance, and hope burning bright in his chest. He went straight to the hospice after orientation. The halls were hushed, and Nurse Ellis met him with gentle eyes. She has been asking for you, she said softly. But she is very tired today. Vera lay against white pillows, her fierce spirit still visible, but fading like sunset. Her eyes opened when Jamal took her hand. Tell me, she whispered. I got the apprenticeship, he said. And the investigation is moving forward. Your documents are safe. The truth is coming out. Vera's thin fingers tightened once around his. A small smile touched her lips and her eyes drifted closed. Her breathing was peaceful. "Rest now," Jamal murmured. "We will keep watch." Time flowed past like water. The investigation expanded, revealing layers of corruption around the library property deals. The emergency injunction became permanent protection for the Harper family's housing. Principal Vaughn resigned ahead of a discrimination inquiry. Then came the day Jamal had dreamed of, the library's reopening ceremony. The building gleamed with fresh paint, its steps swept clean. A new sign declared the Grayson Corner Community Resource Center in bold letters. Inside, the transformation was complete. One wing housed tutoring spaces and job search computers. The main room balanced books with food pantry shelves. A quiet room offered safety for kids who needed escape. And at the center, a meal table stood ready. Khalil proudly helped Jamal arrange containers of hot food, wearing a small apron with volunteer printed across the front. Renee had signed up for evening shifts, saying she wanted to be part of the change. As dusk approached, Jamal noticed a teenager lingering near the steps, trying to look invisible despite his obvious hunger. The boy reminded him of himself, pride warring with need. Jamal filled a fresh plate and carried it outside. A new bench stood where Vera had once sat, her name carved in simple, dignified letters. He set the plate down gently. The teenager hesitated, shoulders tight with shame. "You do not have to thank me," Jamal said quietly, echoing words that had changed his own life. "Just eat." I hope you enjoyed that story. Please like the video and subscribe so that you do not miss out on the next one. In the meantime, I have handpicked 2 stories for you that I think you will enjoy. Have a great day.